Christian parenting.
Welcome to Rocking It Grand with Chrys and Shellie. Rocking It Grand exists to remind us to live in the moment, even while planning for an amazing future. Let's keep our eyes open and see what today brings.
If you could use some godly parenting wisdom, encouragement, and inspiration, along with some fun, real-life stories, the Rocking It Grand podcast with Chrys and Shellie is for you.
Hey friends, welcome to our podcast. We're just kind of getting with it, aren't we, Shellie?
We are. I'm enjoying this.
It's pretty fun.
Kind of happened accidentally, and now we're doing it on purpose and just having a great time.
We are. Our goal of our podcast is always to present some life lessons for you to kind of open your eyes too, like we do, to what God has in store for us each day. And we were talking before we gathered up that it's kind of time when Shellie starts traveling more for her books that she's written and that kind of thing. And it's been such a weird season with not traveling. And then traveling now a little bit, right? Are you back in?
Yes, I have a lot of engagement scheduled that I keep I was telling your sister Jo Neal yesterday, unless they're canceling. And so I'm kind of on eggshells, like wondering, because I keep getting in touch with all these places I'm about to go. And all of them are making adjustments, social distancing, doing all the things that we have learned to do. And they're telling me it's on. So, yeah, I'm about to hit the road. And, a couple years ago, and I think you and I talked about this actually off air once, but I used to speak through November and December. And I pulled back from that. And it was just one of the things God directed me to do that has just been so good. And that's just total family time. And so I get off the road early November.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I don't even, I'm the same way with whatever I'm doing. I shut it down by November and just do family stuff. There's always so much to do during that time. And as our families grow, when we start out with our young families and we've got those babies, it's so busy and it's a crazy time. But then when we get to have that blessing of all those grandbabies, it's just you want to take the time to be with them.
And the holidays are so special. And I like to take that time with them. And then the other thing I did that has helped me so much is I've done the same practice in the summertime. I've decided to come off the road from May to September. And so, we all need those times where we recharge and that we listen to what God is saying. And I think it's so important in our schedules and in our job opportunities and the different things that we're doing to continue taking it to the Lord instead of just assuming this is the way I'm doing it, so it's the way I'm always going to do it.
Right.
And so I love that off time in the summer. I always take it to Him and say, okay, this is everything that's on my plate. Now, what's on here you want off and what's off you won't own.
That's right. Yeah. Well, one thing I learned a long time ago, and I don't know who said it first, I've read it many times, is you can do everything, just not at the same time. It's, and Absolutely. I had to really learn that because I'm somebody who wants to do everything at the same time.
Yeah. If it's an opportunity, it must be something I need to do instead of back up and see if it's the opportunity you need to do now.
That's right. Yeah. And so you have got a lesson for us today that you want to share with us about. It says a people trick that might change your life or someone who crosses it. So kind of a new way to look at people.
A new way to look at
this.
This is a fun topic for me. I wanted to bring it to the podcast to share it with our listeners and talk over it with you, Chrys, because I remember distinctly when the Lord taught me this. And so I'm going to tell you the trick, the little tip, and then I'll tell you why and how it happened for me. But what I like to do, we all run across difficult people, right?
Yes. There are entire books about that.
So we hope we're not those difficult people.
Everybody hopes they're not that one.
Yes, you're hoping that's not you.
Yes.
But we all run across difficult people, and I'm, talking about, I'm referring whether that's in your family, your friends, your church, your school, or just out and about. You're at a shopping center, you're at a fast food place, or you're somewhere checking out, and the teller the lady checking you out is difficult or rude or what I have learned to do that has changed my life so much is to look into that person's face and try to see that little girl or that little boy. Like if
Wow.
it's a grumpy lady, okay, let's say she's just like really mature, old, whatever you want, and she's just looks mean and mad. If I can look at her face while she's scanning my items and I can begin to try to just see and imagine what she would have looked like as a young girl, as a little girl, what begins to happen is your heart softens to them because you think of them, if you can think of them at a time when they felt like the world was wide open, there were so many opportunities, life hadn't come at them hard. And everybody reacts positively to kids, right? To babies.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you just have that natural warmth.
Yeah.
That natural affection. And so if I look at them and I try to imagine like what it was like when they were young and the world was their oyster, or maybe they didn't have a good childhood and they were looking around them and seeing other children that had a different type of life, and how did that form them? And I mean, you can do all that in your head in 30 seconds. You
Yeah,
know how
yeah,
these brains
you
are
can.
that we have. You can just kind of imagine their life. And the next time that person, like 30 seconds later, she says something to you, and your whole entire attitude
And you're
toward
handing her a
her
pacifier?
has changed. Yeah, because you're like, oh, I was just handing
I'm sorry, I was imagining you as a baby.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But your attitude will
Yes.
have softened.
I like that. I like that. Have you seen, I think it's been running around on Facebook lately, where somebody sketches a baby and then the sketch goes from that very same baby sketch and ends as an old person. You watch that happening.
I have not.
Really, it's just beautiful. And it's amazing how you can see that person still in them. So because of you doing this with people, you need to find this.
I do need to find that and look at that.
And I've also, this made me think too, when I run into people, because I don't want to refer to this every time we're together that I'm in the more mature age group, but hey, what can I say?
You're not that terribly more mature. We're just talking a couple years here.
But when I run into somebody and like they're from my past, but I don't recognize them because they look so differently. But after I talk to them a little bit, their look,
you begin
to see it.
Yeah,
how that just made me think as you're saying that, because I think that's a lovely idea and a lovely way to look at people. If you look just deeper into them to see the child that was in them that got them where they are today. So then immediately, you've got that little softer spot.
See, your heart just, even as you start talking about it, and you can visualize different difficult people in your life. And those of you who are listening with us today, someone's coming to your mind, and if you can just think of that person as younger, that your heart will begin to soften towards them. And I remember when this happened for me, and so this is how long ago.
What made you?
How did I stumble on this? Yeah. So this was years ago for me, and my sisters at the time, they both lived in town. I have two older sisters, and one's in Dallas, Texas. The other one was in Arkansas, North Arkansas, and has recently moved back to town. And that's another podcast. But they were both living near me at the time, and we were raising all of our children together. And my mother's mother had passed away, and she had brought her dad to live with her. Papa Stone had some health issues, and she had moved him in. And now he was my hero. I adored Papa Stone, and it was wonderful to have all of our kids down there, little kids for him to see and to interact and to have fun and to play and all that. But it wasn't always roses because he was older, and the volume of the noise, and it could begin to get on his nerves.
My grandpa used to turn his hearing aid down.
Right, turn it down so he couldn't hear them. And so we knew when we needed to send the kids outside to play because, Papa maybe was getting a little bit too much. But I remember sitting there and how when he would begin talking about things in his past, what was so clear to me was that when he lit up as he talked about his past, Chrys, it was because he was talking about years when he felt like a game changer in life instead of a spectator. And many times older people become what they feel like is spectators of life. Now they're just watching everyone else live. And I felt like to a large degree that's what was happening. He was watching everybody else live. And so when he told story after story, after story about his younger life, it's because those were the years he felt vital,
Right.
important. And so I remember sitting at Mama's table that day, and he was talking, and I started thinking about what he must have been like as a little boy, and I started like just
Yeah.
imagining his features and going back, and my heart just went out to him and how it must feel to be at that stage of your life and feel like maybe now I'm not impacting anyone anymore. And
Right.
he was talking about when he first felt called to preach. He was a preacher his whole life. And so I began to imagine life through his eyes, that those years were gone now. And I'm telling you, I just wanted to cry. I wanted to get up and run over and hug him because the Lord was doing this whole thing in my heart.
Right.
And it made such an impact on me that I decided, I can remember thinking, well, maybe this will work outside of Papa.
Yeah.
When he was frustrated and I did it and I saw him differently. And so I began to apply it to other people, and voila, I found out it's just a really great life tip.
Yeah, that's a super good life hack, as they say.
Yeah, a life hack.
I was blessed to have 3 of my grandparents living with my parents. I was already out of the home when 2 of them moved in. One was there, and then 2 more moved in. But my siblings were all still at home, so we had a very up close, personal look at older age, very much older. My grandpa passed away at 92, so I'm talking,
Yeah.
he lived with my mom probably from age 85 to 92.
Right.
And grandpa could only really, through those years, get from his bedroom to the chair in the den.
Yeah.
And so by then, I had little kids running around, very little at that time. They were not too old when grandpa passed away. But you had to be careful and mindful about grandpa's watching his show, don't
Yes.
run over him, don't knock
Yes.
him down when he gets up, all those things. But I also felt like it was such a valuable learning time for my kids to live in that generational living.
Very.
And just like you learned a lesson just by watching him and interacting with him. And I think that's, if you're listening, moms and dads out there, this is a very important tip today too, to expose your children to the older generation. It's a very valuable tool in life to know how to relate to them. Plus, they have lived a life and have a lot of
So much
things
to learn
going
from.
on. My sweet Mary Kate, that's John Luke's wife. John Luke's my oldest grandson. I said something the other day about when we owned the jewelry store, and she looked at me and she said, I learn something about you every time you open your mouth. Like, I forget that somebody new to the family, because we are where we are to her.
You know your history.
Right now.
Yeah.
And she has no history
That's
of
it.
that.
That's what
it.
we're talking
That's
about.
right.
That's it. Because Papa, now you have to understand he was half clown, half comedian, half preacher. I mean, he was a comedian. It's where I get my storytelling. So he was full of life, and he was so much fun to be around. But and then of course these health issues that kind of made his nerves bad right there at the end is what I'm talking about. That would trouble him, with the children. But outside of that, he was just so much fun and so full of life. Well, I was able to, I knew him then.
Right.
See, I could, my children couldn't. They didn't know the Papa Stone that was the life of the party and was cracking up the whole room.
Right.
And so it was important to me for me to handle it in a way that they understood where he was in his life and they could learn from him.
Right.
So a little bonus tip that I thought we would share with everyone, because maybe there's a difficult person that you want to apply this to in your family and you don't remember them from earlier years. Hello, photographs. They can be so helpful. If you take people's early photographs and you just do a little bit of trouble, a little bit of time, digging up who they were.
Right.
Oh my gosh, find the photo of that man that's a little grumpy or that lady that's a little grouchy. Find her early photographs when she was engaged or she was about to get married, and see that newlywed who saw all of life ahead of her, and she'll look different to you than she will at, this other age. So old photographs are hugely important, and they will help you see them little, which is kind of what I call the tip, see them little.
And I think that another tip for us as parents and grandparents is share those stories with our children and grandchildren. No, I don't think we need to like bore them to death with every story of grandpa when he was in World War II, those kinds of things. But as your kids and grandkids get older, share the stories of that's their legacy, that's their heritage, that's who they are, and it makes kids feel more secure when they know some of the background story. So it doesn't have to be a big elaborate thing. I know now that our kids are older. My husband just recently found the story that his dad had written up about their life, and he emailed it again to all the kids just so everybody's got it and they know what's going on. And so you can do that when the kids are at your house or sitting around for a meal. My grandkids, one of the things they love the most is when we sit down around the table. I have a little box that they can pull out questions, and they loved. Now they've gotten older. My youngest grand is 16, but 2 or 3 years ago, even this is just very recent. They would love to sit down and get the box out and ask a question out of the box, and everybody would have to answer.
Right, that's a great practice.
They love that. And my 16-year-old just last night, he's my youngest grandson. They're staying with me this week while their parents are out of town, and we sat down to eat, and he was on his phone texting his girlfriend, and I said, okay, well, now where's our rule? We got to put the phones away
so we can talk.
So we can have some conversation.
Yeah.
And, I've always said just because a kid doesn't want to do something or hear something isn't a reason to not do it. No. And, of course, he's super sweet and put his phone away and laughed a little bit, when he did that. But
you know what,
tell the story.
Right, it told the story. And you know what you're doing there. When we take the time with our kids to tell them that little bit of family history, like you said, you don't want to tell them, all of Papa's story from birth and
right
till where he is right now. But when we tell him the things he's done, and we ask Papa some stories so he can tell them his story, and we can bring him into the conversation with that younger child, what we're doing is showing such respect to him that they catch that, and they begin to understand, you know what, Mama Kegi, they think it's important what he did. I want to hear what he did. And so the attitude that we take with the generation above us can connect the generation below us or not. Depending on how we handle those moments.
Exactly. I've always said that our grandparents, being the grandparents, are the connect the dot people in our family that connect the past with our future, because they're the ones who've had the past that our family is today. And what we want, we are the present, and then our children are this future.
That's
we're
good.
connecting
I like
them all
thinking
out.
of it that way.
Well, thank you, Shellie. What a great show today. Just thinking about a new way that we can think about people, and then also talking about just generational love and support of those people in our lives. And we're so glad you got to be with us today. We love doing our podcast. We love sharing with you some about our life, and hopefully some of the things we bring your way will bring some value to your life as well.
So come back next time. Hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss an episode, because we want to be with you and help all of us see the life that's happening all around us all the time, and see what God is saying to us today.
See you next time.
This has been Rocking It Grand with Chrys and Shellie, powered by Christian Parenting.
Being moms and grandmas is our passion, and our goal is to use some of our experiences to help you on your journey.
If you found this episode helpful, please consider subscribing and writing a review so more Rocking It moms and grandmas can join us.
You can find us through the ChristianParenting.org website, or on iTunes or Spotify.
You can also find us on our own lifestyle site. That's rockingitgrand.com. Thanks again for sharing this journey with us.